Hey everybody, this is Deb with Truthification Chronicles, and last night when I was doing the video that I did, I thought I really need to do one on the media because so many of them have conspired with the DNC, and I really wanted to point this out to you, and I thought, oh yeah, that's what I need to work on. And then I wake up and I find out that POTUS has been tweeting about the fake news media, and I thought, okay, that's what I need to do something on. So let's look at what POTUS has said here. With all of the success that our country is having, including the just released jobs numbers, which are off the charts, the fake news and totally dishonest media concerning me and my presidency has never been worse. Many have become crazed lunatics who have given up on the truth. Now, before I go on, I want to point something out. Remember, the definition of fake news is not negative press against Trump. It is unfounded negative press to the point of not reporting on positives. That's what makes it fake news. When they make things up, and they have to focus on little things that are of no consequence when they are ignoring the big things that are happening in our country. This is what's the enemy of the American people. When they are so focused on their hatred of Trump that they're not reporting on things we need to know about. And this is what's been happening. So when Trump is talking about fake news, if you've listened to him all along, you know that's his definition. It's not that somebody said he did something wrong or that they are being a little negative against him. That's not the issue. The issue is constant negativity to the exclusion of anything positive. They are totally ignoring news because they are so focused on their hatred, and they do make up stories about him. So that is what we're talking about. That's what POTUS means when he says fake news. That's what I mean when I say fake news. That it's made up, it is not true, and it's not an accurate picture of what's really going on in our world. And so that's what he's talking about here. That there's so much that's positive that's been going on. I mean, the tax cuts, people have more money in their paychecks, and we're seeing it in the economy. It's making a huge difference. You know, with the job numbers up, people have more jobs. Everything is working positively in the long run. If there's nothing bad, the fake news media makes things up. Now, I'm going to tell you personally, my parents used to have a business, and when they were getting ready to sell, they were under a non-disclosure agreement, and they were not supposed to talk about it. A guy from the local news came and tried to interview them, and they didn't have an interview. It was no comment, and they wouldn't talk to the guy. So what did the guy do? My parents turned on the TV that night, and they found a fake news story about them. The guy made the story up. It was totally fabricated because he had no facts. He was not basing it on anything. He just made it up. Totally. So I know for a fact from personal experience that the news media makes things up. So that's why it's called fake news, and that's what we're talking about when we say fake news. So let's go on with what he said. The fake news will knowingly lie and demean in order to make the tremendous success of the Trump administration and me, meaning Trump, look as bad as possible. They use non-existent sources. That's an important part, non-existent sources. They just say a source says. They don't really have a source. They're just saying it. A source says, well, you can't question it because a source said it. And write stories that are total fiction. Truthification. They take fiction and try to sell it as truth. Our country is doing so well, yet this is a sad day in America. The fake news media in our country is the real opposition party. It is truly the enemy of the people. We must bring honesty back to journalism and reporting. Now remember, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about honesty. Not so much whether it's positive or negative against POTUS or anyone politically. It's a matter of, is it honest? Is it based on true sources? or are we basing on something else? Now, a couple of months ago, I did 2 videos on Pelosi and the wrap-up smear, and then projection and Pelosi, because these two go together. Make sure that if you're using this one, it's a very short little clip, but make sure that you include information about this one with it, because this is what was going on. And the clip here, I've had a lot of people accusing me on this short one that I was taking it out of context, and she was really talking about the Republicans. Well, yes, she was really talking about the Republicans, but what she was using was psychological projection. She was accusing the Republicans of doing what she herself and the Democrats do. And that was, they take something, they create a fictional narrative, they put it out there to the press prints it, of course, and we're going to talk about in a minute why the press might print something the Democrats would give them like this. And then the Democrats turn around and they point to the press articles and they say, see, the press is covering it, so it must be true. It's a circular reasoning. They tell the press something, the press prints it, they point to the press as being the source of their information. It's circular. It's not a valid way of doing things. But this is how they work. This is how the wrap-up smear works. And when you watch her in this, you see she's very comfortable with this. She understands this as a definite tactic. She says it's the Republicans doing it, but when you watch the full clip, and that's what I put in this video, and I even said full clip on next video and the full clip here, and I still get people who evidently can't read because I put it in there. I even put it as one of those cards that you can click on and go to the next one, the full clip. So it's all there. It's not that I was hiding anything, but my problem was when I did the first one, the short one, I was thinking everybody obviously will see this as projection. I made an assumption I shouldn't have made. I should have put more in there. I had it in my mind and I mistakenly thought everybody else would see it that way. So that was on me. I really should have done it different. But I did do the second video to clarify. It's unfortunate that most people will watch the first video and not the second one. So if you watch one, please make sure you watch the second one as well. It points out more of the projection issue of it. And that's what you need to see and to understand the whole clip, because that's what she was doing. And when you watch the entire clip, it pretty much shows you that she was trying to blame Republicans for things that they do. But again, I don't want to be accused of taking things out of context. I did the first video, I really should have put a little more context in there, but I was trying to keep it short so it could be shared easily and people could see it for themselves. So if you watch one, please make sure you watch the other, and when you share it with others, keep in mind that's what's going on, the psychological projection. What she was doing was showing how they use the press to validate their fake news, their false news, fiction. They're creating fiction and then they're trying to sell it as truth. Truthification. And this is what I pointed out in the short clip one. Chris Steele fabricated a dossier that's never been verified and gave it to the FBI. Steele leaked the fake news in the dossier to the press, and the press reported it as if it were true. And the FISA warrant claimed the dossier was valid because the press confirmed it. This is the type of reasoning that they use. We saw it here, and we've seen it many times since. Now, in the longer video, I also shared this meme. I wanted to show it to you again because I think it's very important and it's very powerful when you show it to people. In the WikiLeaks DNC emails, which remember, the Democrats have never said they were fake emails. All they have ever said is that they were the product of something leaked. Well, we know that Seth Rich actually gave them to WikiLeaks, so we do understand that part. And that is going to come out soon. But this entire list is included in those DNC emails in WikiLeaks. So all of these people were on that list. They were part of this. They were colluding, conspiring with the DNC during the 2016 election cycle. Now, I will put this down below so you can get this from my website. I'll make sure that you have this link. You can download it on your own, but you can look through this list and see all the people who have been part of it. They have been given tasks to write articles that are hit pieces, basically, on the Republicans. They take the information the DNC wants them to promote, the narrative the DNC wants, and they put it out there as truth. Unfortunately, it's not. It's a bunch of fiction. And then the Democrats come along and they say, see, it was in this article. MSNBC covered it, or CNN covered it, or Politico, or whatever. They've got their people everywhere. And when you look through this list, you see that they are in most major publications. These are the mainstream media. And this is why it's so important to address this. I also have this version of it, which I will put down below too, so you can download it. This has one of Q's posts from August 6th. And he does talk about psychological projection here. And he defines conspiracy. And then he talks about these aspects of the fake news. And I wanted to point those out to you in particular because these were things that they put out. When you put an article out and you don't know if it's true or not, that's one thing. But when you put an article out that you know is false, like that guy did with my parents, he knew he had no information. He knew what he was putting out was false. He put out what he thought was happening. He had no clue, but he put it out anyway. And this is something that's happening in our mainstream media, that they don't just put out articles that they think are probably true. They put out articles that they know are not, just to get the narrative going in the direction they want it to go, or maybe more accurately, their handlers want it to go. A lot of them were saying, oh, POTUS colluded with Russia to win the 2016 presidential election. We're still hearing that, even though there is no proof of it. There's nothing that indicates that's accurate at all, in any way. No sources, nothing. POTUS is puppet to Putin? Yeah, really. You know what? The day that Donald Trump is somebody's puppet, I think the world will end, because that man will not bow to anybody. He's not going to be played by anybody. So if you haven't learned that yet, you really don't know POTUS. You haven't been paying attention, because this guy doesn't bow to anybody. And that's in a literal sense. He won't do it because he knows what he's about. He stands firm. Nobody's pulling his strings. He pulls other people's strings. That's the way it works. POTUS to irreparably harm relationships with our allies. Well, we found out that even though at first they were highly offended, why? Because they're afraid he's going to out them. Some of them that were allies were not too good to us during the Obama administration. Oh, they got along well with Obama and his people, but it was to sell out our country. It was at the expense of the United States and our citizens. So now that he's standing up for us, yes, they're going to be a little ticked at that, but that's okay. They should be, right? So they put these narratives out. POTUS will collapse the U.S. economy. Well, it's gone up and down a little bit lately, but you know what? It's not POTUS doing that. If the deep state would leave the market alone, it would be doing very, very well. And we saw that at the beginning when he was first elected. I mean, it shot up. And even though it's gone down some, it still is doing much better than it was. And it's starting to rally again. Hang in there, folks. If you have stocks, it's going to bounce back because POTUS is doing what's right for the American people. And they said, oh, he'll collapse the stock market. He'll cause war with North Korea and Iran and destroy the world. Oh, you know you've heard it. You've seen it. And this is what they're doing. They try to do that fear and scare push. They are so scared that they're losing their power and control that they're willing to do anything to get that back. What Q said here, they would rather see North Korea peace negotiations fail and have war on a global scale than see POTUS resolve it. This is what they're doing. They have a narrative they've been tasked to do. Many of them are complicit in this, willingly complicit, and they don't care that they're putting out lies. The fake news media is not free and independent. Fake news media is the propaganda arm of the Democratic Party. So keep that in mind as you're going. Remember, this list is a list, and like I said, I'll have both this meme and this one for you, so you'll be able to download either one that you want. And I just think it's a powerful statement when you show that to people and you say, these media personalities conspired with the DNC. It's all in the WikiLeaks documents. Go read them. They're there. And these people were part. They talk about getting them to put out articles to support a certain narrative. It's there. It's really there. And just so you don't think I'm making this up, let's go down and see one. Here is from WikiLeaks. This is one of the emails. You can see the thread that it's going to. You have Robbie Mook, who was running the campaign at the time. You have Cheryl Mills, Huma Abedin. Let's scroll on down. In this, they're talking about their strategy, how they're going to do things. And down here we see one about Maggie Haberman from Politico or the New York Times. I believe that she's with the New York Times now. And look what it says. We have and had, I think that's supposed to be have had, a very good relationship with Maggie Haberman of Politico over the last year. We have had her tee up stories for us before and have never been disappointed. What in the world does tee up stories mean other than she put out a story we wanted her to put out so it could further our own narrative? That's what it means. That's what this is about. And this is one of their strategy emails going back and forth. So something to keep in mind. Yes, they are. They are part of it. Maggie Haberman, right here, New York Times. Now, there's some indication that possibly the Q team is trying to get her to turn. And that could be interesting if she would start testifying against these people. But I don't know about that. There was a post that he did just the other night. I'm not real sure exactly what he meant by it. There are different interpretations on it at this point, but I do think he was trying to give her a way out. And that only makes sense if she would be turning and be willing to testify on those who were her puppet masters, essentially. So anyway, that's about Maggie, and you can see that it's definitely true. Again, all of these links are going to be down below. You can use them to share with other people. Please do, because we need to get this information out to others so they can see it as well. So that's what I've got about the fake news media and POTUS's tweets today. I did want to touch on a couple other things just to update you. I found this of the Washington Examiner. Journalists and White House spar over whether Trump is in the Oval Office on New Year's Eve. I know there were a lot of people that were questioning it, but this is an article from a little bit more reliable source. The Daily Mail, I understand, is not that reliable of a source. They do hit the mark sometimes. But the Washington Examiner is a little more high profile, and yeah, there were a lot of people that were going back and forth about whether or not Trump was in the Oval Office on New Year's Eve like he tweeted out that he was. Why is it? Well, because of that Marine being absent, that there was no Marine at the door. Now I know it says Playboy White House reporter, but it definitely there was no Marine there. And so you have to wonder why in 10 years there has always been a Marine outside of that door when POTUS is in the Oval Office. Why after 10 years has that tradition been broken if POTUS was in the Oval Office? So I don't know. Sometimes I wonder if they don't put out disinformation like that. I mean, if he was really in the bunker, then they're not going to outright say that, right? So I don't know. I'm not going to go any further. I really don't know about that because the only sources I've been able to find about the whole story of the Marines and all of that is the Source File. And the Source File does not seem to be reliable to me, in my opinion, okay? That means the What It Means website and the Before It's News website, take them with a grain of salt. I just don't think they're valid. However, I don't have all the information, so it's very possible it was true and they just haven't reported it for reasons of national security. I'm still looking into Dr. William Mount. I have not found very many positive things about him except things he said about himself. And some of his claims I find questionable, but I'm still looking to see if I can validate them. Like, I don't know about his military service, and this whole idea of him being an ambassador, I have not found any connections on that yet. I'm still looking though, okay? Just to get that all out there, I wanted to make sure you understood. The other thing I want you to keep your eye on is Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She is, for the first time in her entire term, missing the first day of arguments today. So that is something significant. Is she going to be able to come back? I don't know. But at this point, I think it's questionable that she's going to be able to continue on because of her health. And there is also, I know this is weird, but there is also the possibility that maybe she is already gone and they don't want to admit that. So that's a possibility too. There are some people on the 8chan boards who are digging into the hospital she was in and also into the doctor who's caring for her, because there does seem to be a little bit of a pattern there with that particular oncologist and some of the people he's been treating who all have these big major stage 4 cancers, and then they end up recovering nicely. One of them is that Maggie Haberman from Hawaii. Things to look into. I'm still looking at a lot of stuff. I'm keeping an eye on the research going on. I don't know yet on that, but it's something to watch what's going to happen with her, because I can guarantee that if she is no longer on the Supreme Court and POTUS gets another Supreme Court pick, yep, the media is just going to go bananas. The Democrats' heads are going to explode on that one if it happens, because that would set the court at 6-3. And even if Roberts, who may or may not be blackmailed, and I'm kind of leaning towards the yes he was, even if he decides to go with the liberals, we still would have a victory there. So that's something that very important to keep track of. And I don't know how long it's going to go. If you follow Q, he posted something about 315, so we don't know if 315 is going to be, March 15th is when she's going to pass. I don't know. Remember, he was right about McCain. So that's something to watch, keep an eye on. It's going to be very interesting. There's a lot of information about her, and I probably will do a video about her. She wrote a book, and it has some extreme views in it about women and about sex and kids, and it's really kind of sad, some of her viewpoints, and how she ever passed the confirmation hearing. I don't know. There must have been a definite Democrat majority right then, because I don't know how else she would have passed with some of the things that she wrote in that book. And the book was written before she became a Supreme Court justice. I know they've just released a movie glorifying her and making her into some kind of patron saint for women or something, but I'm not impressed. And for me, she certainly did not speak for me as a woman. So I really think that we'll be much better off if she's not on our court. Anyway, that's for another video, and there's so much about her, I don't know. We're going to find out what happens with her. I just think she's not going to be back to the court. I don't think so. And like I said, she may already be gone and they're just postponing us finding out. Remember, they have quite a bit of control over the media because they're in charge of what narratives come out. So something to always keep in mind, when you see a lot of news articles come out the same day about the same topic, you gotta ask yourself, is this a narrative that they're trying to push? And that's why there are so many of them. But it's always good to question, because there's more going on out there than we see normally. So you have to kind of look below the surface sometimes to find out what's really going on. That's what I've got for you today. I want to thank you for stopping by, and I'll see you all later.